understanding between human thought and thinking like an occultist, these particular issues come down the pipe. And, you know, I hear this argument sometimes, well, what's wrong with being human? You know, we're all human, and underneath we're all human. Well, first you need to understand the difference between the way the ancients thought and the way you think. Your ancient ancestors that you love to always say, oh, my ancestors are doing something. They understood that they were a little bit more cosmic, a little bit more advanced in terms of what they are in terms of their entire existence than just the human, that they have been regulated down to humanity for a particular reason. And that reason was to study an aspect of ourselves, to study ourselves in a certain condition. And the overall end result added to a collective of a greater form of thinking. But they also knew that you can access that greater form of thinking. There's ways to tap into that. There's ways to do that, because to accessing that greater form of thinking, it therefore then puts humanity in a perspective for you. See, there's a line in the sand that you niggas need to understand. When you say conscious, then you're actually drawing that line in the sand from humanity. You can't have it both ways. Now, we're not talking about stupidity. Like, of course, you're having a human experience. So you do human things. You go to the store, you eat hamburgers, or whatever the fuck it is you like to do. You shouldn't find guilt in that. But you need to understand, because since you're having a human experience, there's a certain amount of you that has to be satisfied, has to go through the motions. But where the line in the sand comes in, that I was talking about, is where your thinking changes. It's in the mind. That's where the line in the sand is. It's in the mind. And then that's where you get phrases which comes out of Gnosticism. Are you in it or of it? I am in it, but not of it. So I am in humanity. Therefore, you'll see me looking almost as if any other human, reacting to human situations like a human. But I am not of humanity, meaning I am not in the fucking experiment. So you got to look at it this way. Your thinking as a conscious person makes you a scientist. That's the difference. Human thought versus scientific thought. As a scientist, as a conscious person who thinks as a scientist would, and that's the best description you can come up with, you're not in the experiment. You are not of the experiment. You know what I'm saying? You're in the situation, you're in the lab with everybody else, but you're not of the experiment. So for instance, you're either, see, when you talk about, well, I still want to be a rapper, and I want to be a conscious rapper, and I want to be a rapper that changes, or rap again, I'm going to bring it back, and all the rest of that shit, what you're talking about, or when you're even talking about, oh, Trayvon Martin, and we got to do something, these crooked, funky white cops are just showing their ass all over black people. Ooh, I can't breathe. When you're doing that, that may be valid for you, and that is valid for humans. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's wrong in the classic sense of right and wrong. If that's your level, then by all means, you should be out there with signs. You should be marching. You should be beating whatever fucking drum you feel it is, or actually not even what you feel, what you were told by Eric Michael Dyson, whatever, fucking the other nigga with the afro, the nigga that looks like his breath stink all the time. Whatever they tell you you should be doing, then you should be doing, if that's your level of thought. So I hold a different standard to people who call themselves conscious. I see you as a scientist. I see the people or human thought as the rat in this experience. So you want to be a rapper that's going to save conscious people, you just lowered yourself down to the rat in the motherfucking lab. You're the one that's being observed. They give you stimuli and you react. That's what they do to a rat or a fucking monkey in a goddamn cage in a lab. They give them situations and then they sit and observe how the monkey or the rat's going to respond. This comes from a bigger picture of conscious versus humanity. Humanity responds mostly emotionally to certain stimuli, and certain lab situations, or as a scientist, you can predict certain responses. So they do things with these police, show you videos, and to create certain conditioned response, to see how you will respond, because they are putting themselves in the position of a scientist. You really need to know the war that you're in, because you guys aren't even fighting. You're not even fighting the true war that you're in. And that true war is those who know and those who don't know. And those who know are manipulating those who don't know. And the ones who are black and calling themselves conscious are performing like those who don't know. So you need to get it out your head that you're doing something, because all of what you're doing has only amounted to your pride. You know what I'm saying? You feel better because you have melanin. But if you're not activating that melanin on a higher level, understand there's levels to melanin. There's a physical level. That's why black don't crack and all of that. And then there's that more advanced spiritual level that you need to activate. You're going to have to do some work to activate. You're going to have to get into your own mind, your own head to activate. You're going to have to change your form of thinking, how you act and react as a human versus a scientist, i.e. a conscious person. You're going to have to change that to start activating these things, to give it the light or the nutrition that your melanin needs. Melanin is activated by light. Knowledge alone isn't going to do it. When you activate that knowledge, let it marinate into wisdom, and then make it manifest into an understanding, meaning a lifestyle or a thought change, that provokes a different lifestyle for you, a different way to interpret planet Earth and the experience that you have. When you let that particular light starts to feed and activate these ancient things that have atrophied you. So you need to understand how important that is. When you do that, you will finally see that you're in the real war. Just because you know the name the Illuminati and that Beyonce is wearing a fucking Baphomet ring like this one here doesn't mean shit. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't mean shit. Just because you know that doesn't mean shit. Until you're able to make it merge and help you evolve into a new form, or reattach you to your ancient form of thinking, I should say. You're not even in the war. You're being played. And we're going to get to that today with Bill Cosby. First, we're going to get some things out of the way. Now, let's understand some basic shit that you should be studying, but I know you're not. How do I know? Because I teach it in class. And this is something called the Kabbalion, or easily found on the web as the Kabbalion. And it's spelled Kyballion. But the Kabbalion is just a later day name for understanding that black folks already made manifest in this reality. And the Kabbalion comes from the wisdom of Tahuti, or the laws of Tahuti. But really, when you read it, it's actually a principle. And I understand that when it comes up with this principle, because I know actually these laws or sub-laws come out of these principles. For instance, the principle of cause and effect. Under that principle, the law of attraction is actually born. Also Murphy's Law, for those of y'all who knows. And you reap what you sow. All of these things are actually laws, but come out of the principle of cause and effect, let's just say. For every cause, there's an effect. For every effect, there's a cause. And if you think it's a coincidence, it's just this law unrecognized. So I'm sure you heard in conscious circles someone say, when you not understand what you heard a lecturer say, there's no such thing as coincidence. Well, that's what they mean. There's no such thing as a coincidence because nothing happens by chance. Cause and effect. That's a principle of Tahuti. And see, because I've heard people sit around and say, and I heard people say on tape, I don't believe in laws of attraction. We don't believe in the laws of attraction, and you don't understand how this universe works, you dumb motherfucking fake ass so-called such and such conscious fucko. You don't understand your basic science, cause and effect. You get what I'm saying? And to understand these laws is to actually understand how this place works. And really the science of these laws or principles is actually coming up with your own interpretation or way to annul a lot of the negative effects of these principles. And when you go through these principles, number one, the principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence, as above, so below, the principle of polarity, principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, and the principle of gender. First thing you'll understand, for those of y'all who keep throwing these words around but don't know your science, when you hear these principles, you'll hear these principles are really talking about a lot of duality, left and right, polarity, rhythm, the pendulum swing, correspondence, above, below, cause and effect, action and reaction, you know what I'm saying? Gender, masculine, feminine, rhythm, always moving, left to right. What you're talking about is balance, or what you're talking about is another understanding of Maya, which you niggas like to talk about often, but really only understand at a surface level. You're talking about Maya. Now you understand why Tahuti is married to Maya. Tahuti is married to the 7 principles of the universe. And then you've also heard Maya represents balance in the universe. That's what we're talking about, scientists, people. But what I want to talk about in particular is the principle of rhythm. And you're going to see why. First, we need to talk about something that is connected to rhythm, principle of polarity. And without going into detail, I'm going to just speak on what the law of Tahuti says, the principle of rhythm is. Principle of polarity, that is. Principle of polarity. And principle of polarity is actually the 4th principle of Tahuti. Principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has a pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Let me repeat that. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degrees. All extremes meet, all truths are but half-truths. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes can be reconciled. So, when they say opposites are identical in nature, what they're talking about is, let's just say, hot and cold. One man's hot is another man's cold, another man's cold is another man's hot. Where does hot and cold start and begin? It really doesn't. It's all just one thing. That's called temperature. So to a occultist, someone who claims to be conscious, a metaphysician or hermeticist,